pressure. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the board meeting for the month of June. Please stand if you can for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're pleased to start this meeting today with a joyful recognition of our CREATE Awards. And tonight, Marianne McKenzie is going to read off our CREATE Awards.
Okay, I am really honored this evening to honor two members of our special ed teaching faculty, Elena Levine and Katie Chapman. Elena, let me get my bearings. Elena, this is for you. Elena Levine is the consummate professional teacher in every manner when it comes to committing to doing what is best for kids while setting a high standard for student achievement on a daily basis. She has a natural sense of empathy for students with learning disabilities and social emotional learning issues that make all kids feel comfortable on a daily basis. Elena has an innate ability to foster growth in students by challenging them in such a positive fashion. I enjoy co-teaching lessons with her as she allows her sense of humor and enjoyment for working with kids to shine each day. And I believe that this was Mr. Crotty's comments to you, Elena. She is a master of reminding students the importance of moving forward. Our students are allowed to get to know Mrs. Levine as a person as well as their teacher. I admire her determination to support struggling students, but also to let them develop independent work skills over the course of the year. Finally, Elena is a natural collaborator and true partner in the classroom. Despite moving from kindergarten to 5th grade this year, she jumped on board, put in extra time learning the intermediate level curriculum, and teaches writing and math at a very high level. I truly believe that her positive energy and enthusiasm for teaching and connecting with students has helped me to be a better teacher this year. It is a privilege and honor to work with such an amazing partner. Yeah. Katie, this is for you. Katie accepted a new role. I'm going to back up. Katie was nominated by Mr. Mandela and Mr. Clark. Katie accepted a new role this year, stepping outside of her comfort zone as a grade level special educator. She embraced the opportunity to lead a new and innovative program offering academic and social emotional support to several of our district's at-risk students. With her sense of humor and refined skills as an educator, Katie has made a significant and positive impact on her students. Over the course of a single year, Katie has formed strong relationships with her students, many of whom experienced unprecedented academic success in this particularly challenging year. Katie approaches her work with kindness, acceptance of others, and a can-do optimism which comforts and assures those she serves. Katie works tirelessly in her advocacy for kids and is a consummate professional in the building. She always brings joy to her students and staff and is an invaluable asset to our district. Katie is without question deserving of our district's CREATE Employee of the Month Award. And I just want to add on one last thought, Katie. A student that I know recently, somebody who respects you greatly, recently told me 3 reasons he thinks so highly of you. You are direct, you are proactive, and you are kind. And so I thought, by golly, I'm going to share that with her this evening. So Elena and Katie, you'll probably never know the positive impact that you have fully on the people that you interact with. But tonight we're reflecting on the greatness of both of you. And thank you for embodying our CREATE values and for all that you do to serve us and our students in our district. Thank you.
All right, and so some of you may not even realize this, but you know it's springtime, and this is actually our last official meeting of the year. And as such, I'm going off script for a moment, and I would like to address Lynn Rutnick. Lynn Rutnick, in this year, like no other year, you have led this district in-person learning and met so many different challenges in front of you. And I just want you to know that the board sincerely appreciates all of your efforts and hard work on behalf of our students and our district and our community. We thank you very, very much, and we have a gift for you tonight. We have a couple other recognitions as well. Now, things got a little bit weird when we went virtual. And one of the things that got weird was our audio visual needs. And they became quite important and more complex. And one person who has been with us so diligently working to meet the needs of the board and even most recently help us be able to broadcast here in the auditorium, Megan Coker, thank you so much for all you do. And you know, this board could not survive at all if it weren't for our amazing board clerk. Now, she took a vacation, which she was very well due to go to Key West, and she actually took calls on the beach to help us in our moments of need. And as she does, she's dedicated and committed and organized. And we can't say enough about Sarah Barton, and we recognize you tonight, Sarah. This last one is the saddest one of all, because this is our last meeting with Mike Varney sitting at the table, although I'm crossing my fingers that maybe, you know, his career may swing him back around and involve in Lake George. But Mike Varney, you have brought an amazing sense of affability and friendliness to the numbers, right? The budget numbers and the business office and the help with human resources and all of the intricacies that go on in the school. You have brought them to a higher level, and we will miss you. It will be a huge loss without you, and we thank you deeply for all that you have done for Lake George. Thank you. That's something when you can make the numbers friendly, I tell you. All right. Thanks, everybody. We're going to move on to our agenda, and we start with Mr. Conway and the elementary report.
Check, check. All right. There we go. All right, so I too want to say thanks to Mr. Varney for all of his good work over the past few years, and I've truly enjoyed working with him, and I'm definitely sad to see him leaving us. But I want to start off by saying to everybody, as we head into the last few weeks of the school year, as I've been saying throughout the year, I truly couldn't be prouder of our staff for all that has been accomplished. Our students for the work that they've done, and our parents for really being good partners in learning new procedures and following rules that we had to follow throughout this school year. And when I say staff, I mean everybody. Our custodians, our drivers, our cafeteria staff, teachers, teaching assistants. It has truly been a team effort. So on this last meeting of this school year, hopefully the last time we're meeting with masks and that our staff has to follow certain sets of rules. Just want to thank everybody again for that, because it's been a challenging year, but I'm proud of the work that we did. Very busy the past month at LGS, and it is in fast forward up until the last day of school. And I'm fogging up tremendously and can't see a thing. So I have a couple of things that I want to just recognize. The first one, when we think about events that started to get our families back to school, students have been in school from the beginning of the year, which has been exciting, but that opportunity to have our families join us again, Randy's Run was certainly one of those opportunities to allow a tradition, a 20-year tradition, to continue. So thank you to our staff that were involved in that day and that special day, and to our students and families that participated. And I keep with that theme with the art show. It was one of the best nights of the year as far as the fact that I got to talk to parents in school. I miss that professionally, and I think it's something that I look forward to, and it's meaningful, and it makes our school a special place, the opportunity to speak to our families. And I know that our families enjoyed coming in to see their kids' artwork, but I think maybe equally as important was the opportunity to just talk and be back in their children's school. So some little steps that were huge, I think, in moving us forward. Other things that went on over the past month, things that we do this time of year, are ELA and math assessments and science assessments. And our students, again, were so well prepared. It's amazing to see what they did. I'm really proud of the fact that we covered curriculum and we had some fun along the way. But we've wrapped that up as well. Summer reading kickoff event, something totally new to us this past Friday. At 10:30 at night, we were wrapping up watching a movie with about 60 people on blankets outside of the school with a temporary screen that was put up there. And that was a small slice of the day that Bridget Crossman and Kelsey Cox put together along with our Young Scholars students. Again, families were able to join in on that celebration. Bridget and Kelsey put together multiple shifts as opposed to doing it, which we would have loved to do, in one shot. But they put in sessions, 3 different sessions, and we're there that morning late into the evening, providing that opportunity for our students. Concert on the Green. Normally we have our concerts in this wonderful space, but this year we're doing it outside at the elementary school. Our plan was to do that tomorrow. With the weather, the forecast, it might be raining when we do our dress rehearsal, and we don't want 300 kids out on the soccer field and have it start raining. And the mugginess that still will exist tomorrow, we pushed it to Thursday. So Thursday we will be having our first concert on the green with the 1 o'clock dress rehearsal, so that all of our students will be able to watch their peers. They're going to bring in towels and sit out on the lawn. And then in the evening, we'll have our concert at 7 p.m. for our families. Nice thing is we don't have to wear masks out there anymore, which is kind of exciting. Flag Day ceremony, June 14th, 8:15 a.m. We are keeping this annual patriotic event that we truly believe in at the elementary school, where we celebrate raising a new flag, teaching the kids about the flag, singing patriotic songs. Our band and chorus are involved in that as well. just be spread out a little farther than we usually are, but we're looking forward to that event. Finally, our moving up ceremony. Our annual event is going to happen as scheduled on June 24th at 7 p.m. Our plan is to have an outdoor event right now so that there are no restrictions. Everybody can be at that event. We're keeping our fingers crossed for good weather. And if the weather does not cooperate, we will figure out a way to have that event in here. And I've met with the team already, and we have a nice plan in place. Talked to Mr. Kokoza about being able to use the auditorium. And hopefully by that time, if we do have bad weather, that will be allowed more folks being able to attend, and those numbers will change. So that's some of what's going on at the elementary school. There's so much more. But again, proud of the year and all that was accomplished despite what we were dealt. So any questions for me about the elementary school?
Statement. Oh, boy, hello. As we wrap up the year, I mean, as you said, your staff has done a wonderful job, and these students did not miss a beat the whole year. Not many districts can say that. And I think it's not only helped academically, but socially, emotionally as well. So I just want to thank you and your staff for all your work. You've done a wonderful job this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Mr. Kokoza with the junior senior high school report.
Hi, good evening. So every once in a while, you'll come across those extraordinary individuals that give you pause. Mike is one of those, a true professional and a true educator in all that he does. Mike has set the new standard for Lake George Central School District, and I wish those who follow him the best of luck at meeting that standard. Mike, it truly is a loss to Lake George Central Schools to lose you. And your next endeavor, we wish you the best of luck. And we can't thank you enough what you have brought in a short time to Lake George schools. Every once in a while, you come across those extraordinary moments in life that give you pause. And this year is one of them. We are also very humbled by all of the work that everyone that has done this year, everyone, and we mean everyone. It is no small feat where we stand here today on June 8th, where we sat in September, not knowing what this year would bring us. So let it not be lost what we were able to accomplish this year, and of course, those items that we were not able to accomplish. However, in the midst of a pandemic, our little small school district was able to accomplish extraordinary things. Just a few very quick items. We are actively supporting our sixth grader and our sixth graders with the transition over to the high school. We've already had a bunch of events, and we will continue to have those annual events to support our sixth graders as they transition over to the high school. We have many end-of-the-year award ceremonies coming up. I can't believe it, next week, Thursday, June 17th at 4 will be our departmental awards for 7th and 8th grade, followed by 5:30, our 9 through 12 departmental awards. Invites went out today. The following Monday, June 21st at 4 o'clock will be our 12th grade scholarship evening, although in the afternoon, followed by our athletic awards ceremony for our graduating seniors at 5 o'clock. And then, of course, our graduation on Saturday, June 26th at 9 o'clock. All of those events that I just outlined to you at this point are taking place at the elementary school on the front soccer field. And as Mr. Conway conveyed, if the state guidance allows us to move those events indoors, we certainly will. I will tell you that the ever-changing landscape with COVID has delayed our invitations to parents to all of these events, because we were holding out hope that the guidelines would change where we could move things indoors. Case in point, last Thursday's coronation at Shepherd Park. I don't know if it was lost on you or not. However, the heavens opened up at 7 o'clock, and you know that our event was at 5. I could only imagine the scene if that storm rolled through in the middle of the ceremony. And then finally, this Thursday, our seniors will continue their end-of-the-year celebration with their senior breakfast, a graduation rehearsal, the first ever cruise on Lake George during the school day, and then their annual picnic at Ushers Park. So there's a lot of things going on as we celebrate not only the end of the school year, but also our seniors and their rite of graduation. That's all I have.
Thanks so much. Any
Of course, I have to echo the same to you as well. Thank you and congratulations on a job well done this year.
Thanks, Fran. All right. Up next is our superintendent report with Lynn Rutnick.
Hi, I just wanted to make sure that folks, and you know, because you've been doing my evaluation, but we have tonight the Spark presentation, and I'm just going to skip over that and give you a chance in 2 minutes to update us on how we're doing with our strategic planning. I did share with the board, but I wanted to also publicly say that our LGEA hiring process, we have made great strides in that. We went through 2 cycles through each building's shared decision-making bodies, and they got back to us with a great deal of feedback. And my partner Mike and I went through every single one of the pieces of suggestion, talked about it, reached out to some HR attorneys on some questions, and the couple of things that bubbled to the surface were we didn't reach consensus on the fact that there seemed to be, not everyone, but there seemed to be a theme about can we send 2 people to the superintendent and rank them. And that is an area that I feel that I would like to continue with, to make sure that there's no bias when 2 people come to me. And there's also a lot of situations where, especially in the North Country, when you have 2 good candidates, you can bet there are 3 or 4 superintendent deep that want those people. So what we try to do is make sure we expedite the process to get those people in to see me, get back to the principals, and make sure that we're making those offers before other people do. One of the other items that came up was the internal versus external. So we have kind of parking lotted that so that LGEA can have more discussions with their shared decision-making bodies next year, and we'll come back in the fall and finalize that. And the coaching hiring process, which we worked really hard with Fran and Kyle and the athletic committee, we've added that to the LGEA procedure so that there's not 2 separate documents. Am I missing anything? It was a great journey.
Went through 18, 19, 20 pages of feedback and went through things line by line and did our best to address everybody's questions and make changes where needed. And sometimes that wasn't possible, but give an explanation as to why, and feel like we're moving in the right direction.
I've got a question, Lynn. So if you have 2 candidates that come to you, now it's my understanding that you have pre-identified the specific needs for those positions, right?
Correct.
And that committee is evaluating the person on those needs. If one of the candidates of the 2 brought forward checks off more of the boxes of needs, are you aware of that from that committee?
So my expectation would be that paperwork would come to me and I would review it before I had the folks come in to see me.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've also made some changes that if Megan is on the school interview process, then she would not be on the district level. But if she cannot be on the school one, then she'll be on the district level committee, and our school business official also would sit in. And there were some great questions about why would a school business official sit in, but I think that just really shows that there's more work and more discussions to be had about the role of the school business official and the lens that they have K-12. Any other questions on that?
So there not being a consensus on the fact that when 2 candidates are put forth and they're not ranked, I guess I heard what you explained about your reasoning behind that, but I'm not sure how that would make the process less efficient to have the candidates ranked. I mean, the committee has done a lot of work. And if there's clearly somebody that the committee feels like is a stronger candidate than the other, I'm not sure why that wouldn't be put forth.
I can tell you in my experience with that, it actually can cause quite a bit of conflict when a committee comes through and brings two people forward, and then the superintendent does not pick the number one candidate for a variety of reasons. It can really almost hurt the morale of the folks who are on the advisory team to the principal who are bringing the recommendation forth. And in the years that I've done this and all the other districts that I've worked with, it's a very common practice, and that was one of the reasons we reached out to the HR attorney. And just really making sure that myself and Mike, or whoever Mike is going to be, or myself and Megan, don't have that bias going in there. That's just the way that I really prefer as a superintendent to run the process at that level.
I mean, I guess my thinking is like, so the committee, there's, a lot of work went into it with the committee, and they've interviewed this person, or these people, multiple people come up with the two. And let's say the day you interviewed them, the person got really bad news and was recovering from the stomach virus, and that maybe was their number one candidate, didn't do well the day you were there. So I guess not knowing that was the committee's number one person, and you went with the number two person based on that one interview, I guess that would make it hard for me. I guess not knowing that the committee's full recommendation is before you, and then you're making a recommendation where I have to vote. I need to feel confident when I'm voting that the very best person is before me as a board member. So I'm struggling with that piece of not having the ranking, and that there was, the shared decision-making bodies were requesting to have that ranking, and that's not part of this.
And so
hiring
Katie,
process.
and I completely respect that, and if that is what you'd like, then the superintendent can step out of the process, and the shared decision-making body and the principals can make the decision, and I can move that forward.
Well, I think,
I don't
just
believe
think
in that.
Just the
It's
other,
asking you to step out of the process.
just the other side of it is, just like I've been on many interview processes where there's multiple levels to the interview process. You meet with multiple people. I think, having the committee go through the two, well, however many people come forward with two, and then Lynn being the final step in that process, because ultimately she has to be the one saying yay or nay and hiring. And I just think, just to have that option as a supervisor, and knowing that it's been through the process of the committee, they gave their input into the process, and then now, and ultimately, that's how it's typically done. The superintendent makes that decision.
Right, and
So-
I'm not disagreeing with that, but if you interview these folks and you're like, wow, I'm not sure why that person was number one, because the other person was clearly number one, not having a discussion about that before making a recommendation to the board.
I didn't say that. I would go back and talk to the principals. So when I go to make my determination, I will go back and pick up the phone and call Jim and call Fran and say, I've really gone with this person because of this. Is there anything else I'm missing? We have a conversation. And usually in those conversations, it comes out who the top candidate is. But you have to be really cautious that at the interview committee, it's not a hiring committee. And we've done a lot of work around making sure that we are articulating that, because in the past, I think it was, you're on the hiring committee, but it's actually an interview committee. And the decisions at that hiring committee or that interview committee are, you decide who to screen, who to question, what questions to have, who to bring forth. And then you really have to the principals sit through and talk through that process. And then they advise the principals who to move forward
Yeah.
to make the final decision for hiring.
And we discussed that in the process to make sure that, like you just said, that you go back and have that discussion. So no one's left
Absolutely.
in the dark, and it's not a surprise. So if anything, it'll warrant more discussion.
And that you have all the information that you need to have to make the best decision. And I think that two-way communication, however the process goes, as long as that communication, it's not just like check the box of this person has this, but also the insights that come with different perspectives. And as long as, I think that's the most important thing, is that you have all of the information that you need to make the best decision. So
Right.
however that-
And then also that change of having either the school business official or Megan there to kind of have those professional conversations with, and then the questions that we have to go back if, because usually a lot of times they are neck and neck. And so you go back and say, I'm struggling, or I really am thinking this, what do you think? And have that conversation, and then that 24-hour rule of sleeping on it, and then coming back and saying, I'm going to go with this person. And sometimes you just have a different lens than the interview committee does, but it really can become problematic if I don't go with the top candidate, and it happens like once or twice or three times. It can really, and it can hurt feelings, and I don't mean to. It's just that I have a different lens.
Well, either way, if you went with the second choice candidate,
Mhm.
the committee is going to know that, and you're going to know that because you're going back to have a conversation after you've made your choice, and then the conversation happens. So either way, that's going to be a known factor.
Not always. Sometimes it's like, we didn't know. Sometimes it's, we didn't know, and it was so hard. We're happy that you're going to make that decision, because we really, we were really struggling with that consensus piece.
Right. And in that case, they could say, hey, we don't have a rank. You're the tiebreaker. They're equal, and we don't,
Yeah.
so.
So one of the things that I'll be asking going forward is really about the process of identifying the needs for the position. I look at that as an anchoring piece, is, everyone understanding what we're looking for in a candidate. And if we have that kind of a rubric or checklist, then we should be looking at the same features in a candidate and not necessarily a personality contest. Fit is important, but we have criteria and we have needs in certain categories. And if we take the time to identify that ahead of time and communicate that, I think it can help the process.
Yeah.
Agreed.
The same when you reach out for references as well. Asking those similar questions really helps. Good conversation. Also, the attrition planning, as you know, we have a declining enrollment, and we have just been really successful in working with LGEA. And Amy, you're out there, so I want to thank you and LGEA for working with us on a wonderful and very fair 2-year retirement incentive. So you know about that. Pandemic planning, I would echo what both Fran and Jim said. Thank you to everyone. It's been a really successful year. I can't believe I hope we're coming out of this, and we do not have to meet here again in August with these, but I wouldn't get too hopeful on that. Just has been a really challenging and wonderful year. And on that same note, mask wearing, we just updated, as you know, there was just a back and forth and kind of a fury in how that rolled out from everyone. And so New York State has really come out to clarify with the CDC that we can lift the masks, and we have here at Lake George for outside activities, PE, outdoor events, as long as we can make sure, and sporting, we can make sure that we have the social distancing guidelines all set. And that's progress. So I think I've gotten a lot of nice notes on that. And I'm going to go with the Spark, and then I'll go with the merger. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Megan, who has stepped up and agreed to facilitate and lead our Spark, which is our Strategic Planning Review Committee, to, believe it or not, move forward in a pandemic year with the next phase of our strategic planning. So without further ado, Meg, take it away.
So I just wanted to start, and I apologize that the presentation, but I just wanted to start with this quote. I've actually used this quote at the beginning of every Spark meeting since I first started facilitating the work with the committee back in 2019. So when we first were reviewing and updating the original strategic plan, I use this to really highlight that this is a never-ending process. It is forever ongoing, and we are always becoming in the strategic planning process. And I wanted to start by thanking the board in recognizing that this year of all years, we were becoming, and it was ongoing, and that you allowed the committee additional time and space to do the work. Because as you remember, we actually, before I get to the as you remember, this is the committee. These are the people that committed to this process and this time during a year where there were a lot of commitments. There was a lot of extra time that they were putting in, and they did this work. It was really their voice that you'll be hearing tonight through this presentation. And it was tough to stay committed this year, and they did that, and they deserve a lot of recognition for that. So this was our original charge from the board. Again, this was the charge when our original strategic plan was coming to an end. And I just wanted to remind everyone of that charge, where it was the idea that our mission, our vision, and our values were a strong foundation that we wanted to continue to hold to. But the board wanted the district to really, and the committee to look at the goals and the descriptions or targets and adjust those by looking at data, state mandates, new priorities that came about since the original strategic plan, and be very intentional about the updating of those goals and targets. And again, just to refresh everyone's memory, I know you can't read it, but we had presented an original proposal to the board where we talked about removing targets that had been met consistently throughout the 3 years of the strategic plan. And then we looked at the remaining goals and targets and developed actions for each of them. So we did all of this with the intention of digging in during the fall of 2020. And COVID hit. And all of the work was put on pause as we just found our bearings to continue providing our services and supports for students and have our students here. And so earlier this year, you may remember, it feels like a lifetime ago, I came and asked if we could push that to the fall of 2021 to have this next phase begin. So I want to, before I share the new updated proposal with the board, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the committee's process. So we started by sort of recentering on the foundation of strategic planning. And really what was most powerful about this document that we were looking at is this concept of shifting environmental factors, and that we were right in the middle of that this year. And so once we found that foundation of what we wanted to do with the planning, we dove into being intentional about those shifting factors. So we talked about our current state of reality. We took that original plan and we just explored it. There are lots of links that I won't click on now, but we had to get a little creative in our meeting because many times we weren't all in the same room. Some of us would be, and some of us were remote. So we really got creative in our collaborative problem solving and discussions. So we use Jamboard a lot to gather our thinking with each other. So if you're interested, I can absolutely pass along those links to all of the detailed brainstorming. But these documents summarized as we just reflected on that original proposal. How does it make you feel right now? What do you think about when you look at that? We also focused on data. That was part of the charge of the board. And so I put together an abridged data dashboard where we looked at the targets and really pulled that data out. It was abridged in the sense that we didn't have our state assessment scores and many of our spring benchmark scores because assessments weren't given the year before. So we used the data that we had to try and figure out where we were with our data points and those internal factors. And then we also just brainstormed those external factors that are shifting and new that came about during these last 15 months.
From there, we worked on setting those priorities. So we dug in deeper to the specific targets. We dug in deeper specifically about the mission and reflecting on that and where we feel in all of those places based on those internal and external factors. And these are the priorities that came about. The numbers afterwards. So the way that we did this is we did a lot of brainstorming through Jamboard. And then each member of the team was given a number of stickers. They were digital stickers because we were doing it virtually. And they could mark on the comments that were most valuable to them. So you can see those numbers afterwards show how many people prioritized those specific statements that were made. And this became our focus for the year. If I were to connect those priorities with our original plan, what you can see is that the committee took our raise the bar and our close the gap goals and said, those are on hold. We're going to continue to do the work that we do around those goals, just as we always have, but we're not going to make them our priority for this year because we didn't have assessment data from last year. We don't know what will come at the end of the year. We're going to continue to do what we do in those areas. But as a committee, we really found ourselves focusing on that big chunk that had kind of been the gray, blurry area before. And we realized that's the area that's most important now. So we looked at how we had original actions related to those goals and targets. So that became the next step of our work. We wanted to review, the first action was reviewing the skills and standards for each of those targets. We did that through existing documents. You can see a long list. Again, they're all hyperlinked there that the district had already decided were going to be those guiding pieces. And we looked at them through the lens of what do you notice? Where are their connections? What's not connected? And I wish you could see some of the enormity of that step, because each of these documents has a laundry list of skills and competencies and standards. So when we first started this, we thought we were going to come up with like, ooh, this one lines up with this one. That was not where that work went. But what we did see is there are many connections. There's a lot of repetition throughout each of those. We saw that the documents were also connected to, there were some other documents connected that we didn't have on there originally, like our counseling plan, which is based on the ASCA mindsets. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, which has been newly shared from New York State Department of Education. And then also New York State's SEL benchmarks and implementation guides. So we even found more resources that we want to make sure we include and explore. We talked about the need for K-12 alignment, especially with our Leader in Me and Rock Solid programs. And this idea of what are we doing already and how do we align those and where are the gaps? And that our approach truly needs to be K-12 with embedded experiences. So this was all really exciting, but the next piece was now what? And how do we go from there? So I wanted to circle back to the mission, vision, and values, because as we were exploring all of those documents, we all a couple people kept coming back to these pieces. And what we found was some similar language. Really, when we looked at all of those documents with the skills and competencies, we started to think, well, isn't that the definition of a lifelong learner, leader, and global citizen? If we defined those skills and competencies, isn't that what we're defining? We also talked about the idea of academic and personal, and that we kept circling back to those areas. Responsibility of cultural awareness, and then our core values. So as we sort of lingered in this area, that is where we ultimately came up with a proposed goal and targets. So those actions way back from the original proposal were that we were going to take that list of about 4 goals with our targets while also adding social emotional learning. And we were going to make a singular goal with 3 targets. So we came really close. We have a proposed goal with 4 targets. And we've called it create values is the goal, cultivate mindsets and behaviors for success and well-being. And you can see the targets are more of actions and strategies that would go along with that. So if we put it all together in a plan, if we were to put it all together in a plan, you can see I have a pretty version to look at up here, but there's also a version coming a lot around to you that breaks it out a little bit further. When we think back to that mission, vision, and value, I think it's important for us to think about the idea that our mission is our why. It's our foundational purpose. Our vision is our what, the future we seek for our students. I think when we think about our vision in that way, it's more tangible than the idea of a vision. What is it that we're seeking for our students? And then those values that we have are really the heart of our culture. You can see our 3 goals along with the strategies are then on the right side of this slide. And I've broken them into that personal and academic component, which we had in our vision. Our vision starts by foster academic and personal excellence. And these goals will help lead to those. So the document, I need to run to the computer 1 minute. I apologize for those of you here that it's so small. This document has what we just saw on the last slide structured slightly differently. So you may recall from, I don't know how many of you looked at our work plans, but when we were doing the work of the original strategic plan, we had our goal, we had targets, and then we had our actions and our data. And those targets that we had were SMART goals. They were very specific. It was very measurable. You'll notice that the structure here is different. We have our goal, we have an objective, and then we have strategies for each of those goals. And then we have our metrics, measures, data, and accountability. So it's almost like we've flipped that order. And part of why that was necessary for this proposal is because we are at the stage of this new goal where we can't give an exact measurement because the second strategy is creating a profile of success and well-being for a Lake George student targeting skills and competencies of social emotional learning, leadership, college and career readiness, equity, and inclusion. So we can't create a measure yet because we haven't defined what we're measuring. When we look down at raise the bar and close the gap, we're in a similar situation where those measures did not occur last year. And what we've learned is while some of them have occurred this year, not necessarily in the same manner where the data will be wholeheartedly straightforward. So our goal, our focus in shifting this was to really focus on those strategies at this point because we have really adjusted to those shifting factors And we need to get those strategies started to then determine what those measures are. You don't see it on the screen, but you see it in front of you where we still have a huge list of metrics, measures, data, and accountability for Raise the Bar and Close the Gap. So we will still continue that accountability piece. Any questions about the process or the outcome of the committee's work?
First of all, I'd like to say to everyone involved in Spark, this is so amazing because I think it would have been very easy with like this, you know, to step back, really just can't. We'll wait. Our data-driven, you know, test-driven, data-driven information, et cetera, to move on. So this was so creative and very, very important. Actually, in some ways, maybe strangely advantageous to be able to thank you. I don't know if there's a silver lining to this crazy year. But I've got to ask, just out of curiosity, so that's totally makes sense where you have to start with some baseline. You've got to be able to create a profile of success and well-being for Lake George. Have you all talked about, I mean, where do you even go for resources to figure that out? That's a tough thing to, I was just curious.
It is. So when I was on that one slide, I think it was, you know, our step 2 of looking at all of the different documents. That was my naive attempt of thinking that's what we would do in that. And we very quickly realized that's not something you do, you know, between 2 monthly meetings.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of how we moved to the next piece and defined this as our strategy. But no, I can't say that we have a solution, but one thing I do know that everyone in the committee was very passionate about, and it's starred at the bottom of that box, is that won't be the work of Spark. That work needs to be community-wide, and we need voices from every stakeholder group. And we have that on Spark, but it needs to be larger than Spark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've got a numbers question.
Okay.
So I'm just looking at this, 85% of K to 8 students will meet district grade level benchmarks. And, you know, just at this right now, I don't know how many are currently, right? So I don't know if that is more, I'm assuming it's more than what is current, and we're setting a higher goal.
So
Okay.
let me just interrupt briefly. The goals and those targets that are under Raise the Bar and Close the Gap have been carried over from the original plan. So the action on the original proposal that was presented pre-COVID, that target wanted to carry over, but the action items were to update those numbers. And then for Close the Gap, the action items were to actually I'm going to confuse the two. Raise the Bar, there were 2 targets, and we wanted to combine those 2 targets. And then for Close the Gap, we wanted to do some work around, we talked about a year and a third growth, and we talked about a wide group of students. And the committee wanted to really dig into being more specific for the different groups and really thinking about a more manageable way to talk about growth, because a year and a third seemed awkward. So that was the pre-COVID actions set to those. And then when COVID hit and we dove back in, knowing we wouldn't be able to accomplish all of the tasks on that original proposal, the committee sort of decided we're going to put that on hold. And as you're bringing up, we don't know how many students reached proficiency last year because we didn't have those same measures. And we have different measures, but that doesn't mean those measures correlate to the measures we had before.
Sure.
So those targets will be updated as I should say those objectives will be updated as we can work through those strategies and as we know what's going to happen with our data.
Right. One of the comments I made, and I know this is very idealistic, but setting a goal for 100% and then looking at the numbers, this is what we know for our number norm, right? Pre-COVID, this is the data we have, and this is how far we've moved toward this. And what do we consider success? There could be a number that's like 85%. That would be a growth figure. But I don't know, I just think about that in terms of reaching high for the ideal and setting numbers down.
Yeah, during the original plan, there was a lot of time spent on those targets, and there was a lot of thinking both ways as far as setting something that is obtainable and setting, while reaching and pushing, but also not setting something that everyone's going to say, we can't get 100, so let's just, But I can
It's
hear
more
what
of
you're
the
saying
scale.
about stages.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is tremendous. This is amazing work, and you are explaining it very, very well. And I appreciate everything that you've done and how you present it. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. I've had the pleasure of being on Spark since its inception, initially as a community member and then as a board member. And there's almost nothing I can really add. You explained it extremely well. I just want to commend the whole committee on their work, and I've loved seeing the evolution as we looked at the initial work that the Spark Committee did, and then this year, I feel like there was addressing the whole child, which we talk about the whole child, and I feel like it's very holistic when we have how you explained the personal and then the academic, and I think it really helps us get in the mindset of that whole child as we're working through the strategic plan. So thank you very much for your work and for the committee's work. It's been a pleasure to see all the great community input and the voices in the district. And I agree that after the pandemic has simmered down, having more voices is going to be really important as we continue on with this work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, Meg. And now I would like to just read a quick statement to the Board of Education about the football merger. I would like to take this opportunity to address the Lake George Board of Education about the Lake George Hadley Luzerne Corinth football merger. It is really important for the community to understand that when Mr. Manny, Mr. Kokoza, and I began our discussions about the football merger over a year ago, we really had two main goals in mind: to create opportunities to allow our student athletes to play football and sustain our football program now and in the future with full knowledge that we have a declining enrollment upon us. In recent weeks, it has become apparent through the student and community petitions, as well as the comments made at the Special Board of Education meeting and the parent outreach, that we do not have the support needed to continue with the football merger. In collaboration with Mr. Kokoza and Mr. Manny, as well as in discussions with my fellow superintendents from Hadley, Luzerne, and Corinth, it is clear that if Lake George continues with the merger at this time, it will be contrary to our aforementioned goals, as the student athletes themselves are not on board with the solution proposed or adopted. And together, Mr. Kokoza, Mr. Manny, and I understand, accept, and speak with one voice on this item. Furthermore, what has come abundantly clear to me this year is that the concept of whether to merge or not to merge is no longer confined to football. Lake George is facing a steep drop in our enrollment, and I believe for the success of all future athletic programs, the district needs to engage in some serious discussions with a larger audience to problem solve about the impact the drop in enrollment will have on all of our athletic programs. But we are so blessed to have a highly engaged community. We need to continue to strive to leverage the strengths, voices, and creative solutions to challenging problems to help us make these type of decisions collaboratively at the place where the decisions have the largest impact, with our students, our faculty, our coaches, our administrators, and our families. I've said it many times in my tenure here as your superintendent, with challenges comes great opportunity. And with this challenge before us, pressing the pause button allows us to come back together and start anew. I have heard the message clearly. We have the passion, the commitment from our football coaches, our players, and their parents that they want more time to keep building upon their success with our valued Lake George coaches. And I have the utmost confidence that everyone involved in the merger and beyond have the commitment to collaborate respectfully and move a process forward together. I want to recognize our students for their advocacy each and every day. I feel honored to serve as your superintendent. Standing up for what you believe in is not just courageous, it takes a level of vulnerability that I believe everyone can learn from. And sometimes that courage works in your favor, and sometimes it doesn't. But this I do know for sure. Our football community and our athletes have spoken. Mr. Kokoza, Mr. Manny, and I have heard you. As your superintendent, as your principal and your AD, we want you to know we hear you and your voice matters. But please understand that if the district exits the merger with Hadley and Corinth, we do not have approval for a merger with Hadley Luzerne next year. And we have no guarantees that Hadley Luzerne will choose to merge with us for the 22-23 school year, which could have a serious impact on the long-term impact of our football program and for the students to come after. So coaches, athletes, parents, all of us, we all need to work together to recruit, stay engaged in the discussions, and even when times get tough, I'm going to ask everyone to remember this. We're all on the same team. During some of the more challenging times while serving as your superintendent, times just like this, when looking at and weighing all the options, I have been reminded that I have been hired to serve the Lake George Central School District students, the stakeholders, and to serve at the will of the Board of Education. And as we are all aware right now, the board has already approved the football merger resolution. While it is never a district's intent to enter into any agreement to then exit an agreement, after hearing from our Lake George football community, I would support the board's consideration to exit the football merger at this time. And after a lot of discussions with Board President Biles, I will now offer her the floor to discuss and consider the item further with the Lake George Board of Education.
Thank you, Lynn. That was a phenomenal statement, and I really support everything that you put into that, and I appreciate it very much.
Tricia,
As does the board. And I see Melissa motioning over here, so I'm going to give the floor to Melissa.
Yep. Yeah, I echo what you say. It was really impressive. You know, Trish and I got to meet with the parents, and then we had our meeting with the community, students and parents, last week. It was very productive. And you know what? The reason why we were going forward with this merger is for the students. But I believe that if the students have concerns and don't have their heart in it, that needs to be considered as well. And we are one team, not only in football, but in the school district. And the board hears you as well. Because of that, I want to make a motion that the Board of Education of the Lake George School District hereby exits from combining merger of students from the Lake George Central School District, Corinth Central School District, and Hadley Luzerne Central School District to form a singular varsity football team for the 2021-2022 football season.
I would second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, and we can have a discussion.
It's not a decision, made lightly, but, working with Kyle and the athletic committee, we did try to consider all different avenues of how to preserve our football team due to the declining enrollment. But, we thought we did our due diligence, but we also, with this continuing conversations that we had, we were able to gain different perspectives. We were able to think of things in all different angles. And I think it was very good conversations that we had. So as much as, the work that was put in, I want to thank Kyle. I want to thank the athletic committee. That's not to be discounted. But sometimes we do need to take a step back and we need to look at things in different ways to make sure that we're going forward with everything. And everything also includes the voices of those community members, those parents and the students. And I think that needs to be considered moving forward.
Thank you, Melissa. Go ahead, Marianne.
So I just want to make a comment that, I just have such a deep respect for our district professionals for recognizing the vulnerability of the future of football at Lake George, and for researching, navigating complex processes, making recommendations, giving their expert opinion of the best course of action to keep a sustainable program for our students. I am also so pleased that we have a community that exercises their voice on this topic. And I truly respect the community's right to make an informed decision to seek a separate path than the recommendation that is before them. A+ for everybody. And I respect everybody who has come to the table on this topic.
This has been a challenging process, and that the board has taken a lot of time and listened to all of the voices that spoke. And regardless of what the vote is or the decision comes about, the reality of the situation, because of the declining enrollment, is that it's going to be challenging to maintain a football program beyond just even a couple of years. And to me, that makes it very evident that not only the district, but especially the parents of football players and the football players themselves are going to have to put a lot of extra time and work into promoting to keep a good, solid program going. So I think as a district, we're happy to listen to people, but we want to make sure that everyone is aware of the reality.
And it was good that we had that meeting, I think, on June 1st, because I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of all the details involved, all the information that we were given, to make sure that the community had that same information, so that going forward, we are all on the same page.
And I would just like to say, especially thank you to our athletic director, Kyle Manny, has put hours and hours into this. He does his job diligently and provided a great deal of information to our board. And we rely on those district professionals to come to our decisions. But when the community speaks, we like to listen, and I hope that we come up with the right decision.
I want to thank our school professionals, and I want to thank the community's voices. I've thought a lot about the football merger, and I have concerns for exiting. I have concerns for staying. There's been, we've entered into an agreement with 2 other schools, and who are counting on us for their football programs as well. We've spent time and money on those things. And I have some concerns about the long-term sustainability of the football program. I'm thinking about the elementary school students, the junior high students. But on the other hand, I have concerns for staying in the merger. Partnerships, for them to be successful, the participants need to be willing and have a positive feeling about it. And I think a forced partnership can be a doomed situation. And I don't think that would be fair to the schools either, and Hadley Luzerne. So I think, if we don't have a positive feeling toward partnership, that's, not the way to go. So I feel like I, at this point, would support exiting the merger And again, I appreciate all the work that's gone into it for our school professionals, and I appreciate the voices of our students and our parents and community members.
I can't help but, I guess, many of you know that I teach in the Hadley Luzerne School District with Mr. Doers. And, you know, I just, the young men that are here that play for Lake George football and that have been part of the War Eagles team for the past couple of years, I'm going to be seeing the boys as Mr. Doers will next week. And, you know, I'm sure whatever happens here, for example, if it was voted that the merger goes down, I know that I'm going to see a bunch of really disappointed young men. And I know it's not a bunch, but a good number. And that's tough. So I just want to remind the players here, the young men here, if you do get to play on your own next year, I tell you what, make the best of it for yourselves, but also make the best of it for the Hadley Luzerne guys who would have been playing with you maybe in a season, I know, albeit with another school. Think of them. I don't know if they'll have a season. So be positive, make it the best season you can if the decision does change about the merger. And, you know, go with the optimism first. So when a challenge comes up, try not to think of the negative. Think of, okay, what can I do or what can we do as a team to, I don't know, change things for the better if you're feeling that you're, I don't know, struggling with your season or whatever. So I'm not being very clear, but I just, being a Hadley Luzerne teacher, yeah, I'll feel bad for the boys. Just don't forget them. So thank you.
Thanks, Janine. Go ahead, Rosemary.
Okay, I agree with everything that's been said here. I think our administration did an awesome job dealing with merging and then considering not merging anymore. I do think that there are lives that'll be affected by this, but I hope that our guys are positive. I hope our parents are positive. I don't hear, I hear a lot of negative comments about some of our people here at school, and I just, I always think back to a good friend of mine who was a coach here for a long time, and she had the most positive parents, the most supportive parents she could ever have asked for, and that made for a successful program. That brought her to states many years after year after year, and I think that's really important, that the parents are supportive. I know you will be, but, I just hear a lot of, I see some emails and things like that, negative comments about people who work here. And, people who work here spent their lives dedicated to physical education or school administration for kids, wanting kids to be successful. There's nobody against football. I believe in my heart. We just would like it to be, we looked at the merger because our numbers are low. And this might be one of the rude realities that we're going to have to face over the next few years, that we're not going to have the people to support all these teams. So this is our first step into we're going to be looking at all our programs, not just football. So, we need parents to help us. We can't do that by ourselves. And, we need positive people who have good ideas, people who can step forward and help each other out. That's all I just want to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosemary. I have to say that I just value the hard work that's gone into all of this, everything that's been said about the team of administrators that, brought this through the process from the inception, and the outside work that they've done to collaborate with other districts, the hard work that the board has put in with the thought work and the time and the extra meetings has been fantastic. The headline of the Times-Union says, Lake George football players threaten boycott over team merger with Corinth. And it's a very divisive, sensationalized headline. And I just would like to say that's not how I view it. I don't view this as a threat to the district. I don't view this as some sort of a power play. The story that I'll be telling as we move forward is that our students stood up and spoke what they wanted for their football team. And the parents supported them in what they were seeing for their football team. And I think that there is great value in the fact that we would like a team that identifies us in our community. And I heard that loud and clear. And I think these stories that we tell going forward, whatever comes of the vote here, is going to be very important, that we think about saying things in a way that unifies us and shows the strengths that we do have here, every single one of us in this room and beyond. So I just wanted to put that out there. Any other comments before we go ahead to the vote?
Yeah, and also, I mean, I love to see you guys here tonight, but we do have this once a month, so. We'd like to encourage you guys to come once in a while and see what it's up to. We do have the recordings online still, so, that information, we'd love to have more involvement moving forward. So thank you for being here tonight.
Okay, so now we will put it to the board for a vote on the motion on the table to exit the merger. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion is carried. All right, and I just want to turn to Lynn Rutnick and speak to you as the leader of our district, knowing our situation and hearing people talking about recruitment as being very important. One of the things that now that this has been voted in, I would like to let you know that I'll be asking as a board member for some reports, especially in the beginning of the year athletic report, how we're going about that responsibly. Because I know that when we feel an urgency to have people on our team, sometimes there's an overzealousness to that. And gentlemen in the back, you're here, and I hope you'll share this with your teammates, that we're looking for that responsibility, that care, and certainly don't want to strong arm anybody into doing something they don't want to do, but doing that in a thoughtful way and involving our community so that parents are helpful in that process. That's one of the things I'll be asking. All right, back to the superintendent report. Do you have more?
I do not.
Oh, very good. Well, we're going to move on then. And now we're going on to our reports. Audit and Finance with Lynn King.
The Audit and Finance Committee met on May 26th. We were graced with Megan Coker, our Director of Technology and Innovation. She came and offered a proposal, an idea of allowing staff and retirees to purchase some of the computers that when they reach the end of their useful life, which is about 4 years. So we're putting a draft agreement is in progress, and we'll hear more about that. We reviewed the treasurer's reports. We have received $989,000 in unpaid taxes from Warren County. All reports, all accounts were reviewed for accuracy. And then we also, Mike gave us information on a penalty that we received from the IRS. There was a glitch in a payment that ended up being late, and through no fault of the business office, they did try to make that, and it just wasn't going through. Now our attorneys are drafting a response, hoping that we will get abatement on the penalty, which is $6,800. I mean, and of course the IRS moves at the pace of a turtle. So anyway, positive attitude on that. Starting July 1, it's not a policy change. It's just in addition to the policy we have on budget transfers, there will be transfers over 50,000 will need board approval. So that's just a change. Policy remains the same. It's just a change in an amount. So we had a discussion about EV stations. I think we'll be having further discussion on that, hopefully. And there is work being continued on both of the federal grants. Thank you. And I would like to say, on behalf of the Audit and Finance Committee, we're going to miss you, Mr. Varney, like crazy. Me, not so much, but you have been patient and you have given us, I've learned a lot from you. You've been very patient with answering all of our questions and the details that we bring forth, and we are going to miss you greatly. Absolutely. Thank you. And that is my report, Madam President.
Thanks. Lynn, I just wanted to point out to the board, this surplus computer agreement is actually in, we have the final and it's been in our notes. So if any of you missed it, make sure you're pulling that up. And if you have questions about that surplus agreement, go ahead and take a moment to take a look at the consent agenda and you can ask anybody about that. And now would be a good time because it is embedded in the consent agenda. Yeah. Everybody's good? Excellent. Okay, thanks. And we're going to move on to Melissa Seal with the Buildings and Grounds Committee report.
I echo what Lynn said about Mike. I'm going to miss him so much. His work on buildings and grounds, it's really, him being present has just been such a blessing. So he's going to be missed. So the first thing, the McPhillips Preserve, Jamie Brown from the Lake George Land Conservancy presented us with a status update for the McPhillips Preserve. There's going to be a bridge going from our school property to the McPhillips Preserve across the street. We discussed signage, we discussed access and how that's going to work moving forward. We discussed the Sun Valley Drive apartment proposal. Upon approval by the town of Lake George, construction on that is going to start as soon as possible across the street from the elementary school. The tennis court parking lot, the district and Lake George Village Public Works Superintendent discussed the tennis courts recently and any changes that may need to be made to the parking lot. The decision was that the yellow line that was painted to demarcate the road from the parking lot is the best solution possible and nothing else needs to be done at this time. So we're gonna keep as is. Updates, the elementary school doors are nearly complete with only some minor electrical work remaining. And storage shed has been approved. So the old shed has been torn down and the Lake George staff are building a new concrete pad and we've ordered a steel shed from the manufacturer. And last but not least, the building condition survey. It was shared for the elementary school, high school, bus garage, and the information will need to be discussed as a district and prioritized into the 5-year capital plan moving forward. Any questions, anybody?
I just wanted to ask, who does the building condition survey? We do that in.
Our architects, Tetra Tech does that. They, with the assistance of Rick, they walk the buildings and.
Mary Ann, did you want to take that on in Mike's absence?
I think that's a good idea. You're going to take that on, right, Mary Ann?
Who does that? Because I'm interested.
All right. Thank you, guys.
She just had her own structural thing going on at her house. That makes that very funny to me. All right. Okay, the policy committee report. Mary Ann McKenzie. Thanks, Melissa.
This evening, we do not have any policies up for second read this evening, but we do have 6 policies moving to first read. The Erie 1 update policies include 3421, which is the Title IX and sex discrimination policy, which I've mentioned for months. We finally have we've completed our review and incorporated feedback and advice from our legal counsel, and that is moving to first read this evening. And because other policies referred to that policy and it was a new one, there were a couple that were sitting behind it that are also ready to go. That were reviewed electronically. One is 7553, hazing of students. And another one was the 6122 staff complaints and grievances policy, which also referenced the Title IX policy. So that is moving to first read this evening. In addition, another Erie One update that we have is use of email in the district, which we discussed at last month's board meeting. And also, policy 3310, public access to records, which the policy committee reviewed electronically since our last board meeting. And this is a required policy. The revisions that came to us do not reflect any changes in law. Rather, they are meant to assist districts to comply with the Freedom of Information Law, otherwise known as FOIL. Specifically, just to give you an idea of what these revisions add, it stipulates that districts can charge a fee for copying documents that are being FOILed. And if individuals are seeking lists of names and addresses, they must certify that they will not use, sell, give, or make available these lists for the purpose of fundraising or solicitation. And also that districts must be responsible to post and outline the FOIL procedures. And I think that is it for our Erie One updates. And we had one policy that we reviewed internally, our internal review, 1510, regular board meetings and rules and quorum and parliamentary procedure, which we discussed at our last board meeting, but we incorporated minor language revisions, and that's ready to move forward to first read this evening. That's my report. Does anyone have a question?
Thank you so much, Mary Ann. Great work. Next up, we have our school business consent agenda. Oh, sorry.
It's our first.
Oh, sorry, I skipped right over that. That was not intentional. Okay, so we have time for public comments, and Sarah, do we have any folks who are on virtually? Nobody's raised their hand. Okay, so we welcome your public comments right now on any of the business that we've talked about so far. Do we have anybody interested in public comment? We have a gentleman in the back, so we have 3 minutes, and please come on up. Lynn King is our timekeeper.
Good evening, everybody, Board of Education. I just want to say thank you to everybody in this room for taking the time and listening and acting on a very tough decision for everybody. This doesn't just affect the people in this room, but there's a couple other school districts that are scrambling right now. And I'm sure that decision and their feelings hung heavy. But I appreciate you guys doing everything you can to represent those guys up in that back corner. And gentlemen, the hard work starts now, you understand me? We need leaders. You need to be that leaders, all right? It's got to start from the top with you guys and trickle all the way down to these new guys coming up. You guys have to redefine the culture. And that's going to start right there in that corner. You understand me? Outstanding. And what struck me is something you said earlier, Mrs. Earle. We all have to move forward now with a sense of inclusivity and positivity and go forward. The negativity has to stop. I know there's a lot of negativity. I hear it out there, and I try to stay as neutral as possible. Because I'm a parent and a coach, and I got one foot in each door, and it's very hard. But I hear some of it, and it has to stop from all sides. Right, guys? It's only going to make everybody's jobs in life easier moving forward. All right? Good, everybody? And thank you once again. I appreciate it, guys. You guys busted your ass this year. It was real tough, and this didn't help, I imagine. But thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Well said.
Come on up.
I also wanted to say thank you. I feel the way you do. I have been involved with wrestling and football with Hadley Luzerne. I know a lot of Hadley Luzerne students. We are a very close family. So this, for us, I have to be honest, it was not an easy decision. That's one of the first things I said. Well, what about them? Like Hunter DeMarsh. There's a bunch of kids that really will leave like a mark on our hearts. It's not easy, but I do have faith in our community. I do have faith in these kids. And I'm a Lake George warrior. And I really feel like we'll make it. My husband was a class of 55. I was a class of 94. The numbers fluctuated, and I just feel like going forward, they'll have to work hard. But that's something they need to do in life anyway. They need to learn it. I think this will be the best part for them, the best place for them to start, you know? The growth of something new. But thank you. You guys put a lot of time into this, and I agree with the positivity. I look forward to seeing the board. I like watching you work together. I've learned a lot, and I'll continue to come and support our board at your meetings.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? All right. And did any pop up virtually? All right. Very good. So we will move on to the business consent agenda.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the school business consent agenda items A through I.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Okay. None opposed, motion carried. Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
Marion moved, Lynn second.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the faculty staff. Thank you.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the amendment to resolution number 2116, item K, to read, motion to accept the resignation of Kathleen Price from the position of school psychologist for the purpose of retirement under the 2020-2021 terms and conditions of the Lake George Education Association contract effective June 30th, 2021.
So moved.
We've got, who made, was that Melissa? and
Melissa, so
Mary Ann?
moved, and second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carried. Faculty staff appointments.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves faculty staff appointments, items A through B.
Moved. I so move.
Lynn moves, Mary Ann seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Motion carried. And I just want to give a congratulations for retirement and a thank you, and also a congratulations for the position. On to faculty staff agenda.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the agreement by and between the district and the Lake George Central School District Staff Association and unaffiliated 12-month staff dated June 8, 2021 in regard to vacation leave and pay.
So moved.
We have Katie second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carried. All right, we have reached the point of Board of Education comments and discussion.
I just want to recognize our Lake George baseball team and softball teams. They brought it home for us. They really did. What a great season. Good job, guys.
You know, we've been getting a lot of communications around athletics. And I view that as, that's wonderful. I believe people feel that their voices are heard and that that information is coming to us. And I just want to remind us all to refer folks back to the source and give recognition, especially to Kyle, who I've seen things go back, and the amount of detail and specificity in which you understand the regulations and have to enforce those regulations, even when they don't seem sensical to parents and players. I just want to give a shout out for that and know that we see that and we hear that. And I thank you for that.
Thank you, Kyle. I will give you a-
Any other discussion items? All right, we're at the next public comment. Any new public comments? All right. Now we're going to go ahead and propose an executive session for two purposes. We are going to be speaking about the history of an employee, and then we're going to be meeting about the consolidation of the superintendent evaluation. And we do not anticipate coming back into session after this. So can we get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks, guys.